Today I am going to read from Ken Wapnick's book, The Message of A Course in Miracles, and this is volume 1, and it's called All Are Called. And the second volume is called But Few Choose to Listen. And this is from a passage in the text where Jesus says, many are called, but few are chosen, which is in the Gospel of Matthew, something Jesus said in the Gospel of Matthew, which was, many are called, but few are chosen. Jesus in the Course says, what that should say is, all are called, but few choose to listen. So he turns what sounds on the surface in the Gospels seems to be a message of exclusivity, meaning some people are excluded, right? Because they're not chosen. So there's an elect or a select, right? An elite. There's those who are the followers of Jesus and those who are not. And Jesus turns it in the Course to say, no, everyone is called to come home. Everyone is called to salvation. But not everyone is choosing to listen at any given time. And, why that is, who knows? But if you're doing the Course, you probably are listening, right? So, anyway, let's read this. This is the very beginning, actually, chapter 1 of Ken's book. And the title of this is The Non-dualistic Nature of God and His Heaven, the Pre-Separation State of Oneness. And this is just the introduction that I'm going to be reading, and that's probably all I'll read today. Here it is. It's a very short introduction. We begin at the beginning and therefore state that the metaphysics of A Course in Miracles is non-dualistic, as it expresses one pre-separation state, God. Remember, we've been talking about God is, right? God or God is. In fact, the Course can be said to represent what we may call a perfect or pure non-dualism. This form of non-dualism holds not only that God is truth and all else illusory, but that God is in no way involved in the illusory and unreal world of perception. What we may refer to as, quote, imperfect, unquote, non-dualistic systems teach that although the world is illusory and God, or the divine, alone is real, the deity is nonetheless somehow involved in the phenomenal universe. An example of this system would be the forms of Hinduism that teach that the physical world reflects God at play, the Indian notion of Leela. I think Ken spelled that word wrong. He spells it Leila, but it's generally spelled Lila or Leela. It's okay. Other forms of seemingly non-dualistic systems, such as is found in some of the ancient Gnostic philosophies, believe that the imperfection of separation arose within the Godhead itself, thereby giving the imperfection some element of reality. Finally, as I discuss in Few Choose to Listen, which is the next volume, many students of A Course in Miracles turn it into an imperfect non-dualistic spirituality by seeing God as actively involved in their personal lives. In the following 3 chapters, we shall explore the Course's perfect non-dualism by discussing its metaphysical principles of God, the absolute and perfect one, and the ego's illusory thought system of separation that leads to the appearance of the perceptual or phenomenal world. Okay, so just a couple things I want to say. One is Aristotle had this idea of God as the unmoved mover. meaning that God, just like in the Course, as far as I understand, I think Aristotle's idea was similar to what Ken is getting at here, which is, and which I do think the Course is getting at, which is that God, if God partook of the, if God had anything to do with the illusion, that would make it real. But by definition, an illusion is something that is not real, and because God is the only reality, God really has nothing to do with it. And that's the paradox, or the thing that just blows your mind, because then you say, well, where did the illusion come from then, if not from God? Now that's a question that for you to know and you to find out. But the unmoved mover, Aristotle's idea seems to be that everything comes from God, ultimately. Yet, God really has nothing to do with the illusion, so to speak, because it's not real. Now, we could talk about, how that just with our intellect, how we could figure that out. We could say, well, God contains all possibilities, including not God, right? That's a possibility. You could say in the mind of God that, there's a possibility that there is no God, or that there is a separation. That's still in the mind of God, so to speak. But God really has nothing to do with that, in a sense. That is somehow. So I think that the thing is that because it is an illusion, see, we've made it real. So that's why we ask that question. That's what Jesus is getting at, is like, we're asking from within the illusion, we're asking, well, if, where did this all come from, if not from God? But the Course is trying to get us to see that the illusion is not real at all. Right? So it's like we are still in God, even now. It's something that I think for all of us is something we're warming up to and we're waking up to. But so the unmoved mover, Aristotle. The other thing I want to mention is Shankaracharya. So there is this idea of Leela, right, in Hinduism, which is that Leela would be God's play, which is, an answer to the question of why did God create the universe? Well, God created the universe as a game or as a play. And you find this in the New Age too, the idea that God chose to be separate in order to find God's self again. And it's kind of like a game. It's kind of like a, hide and seek type of that children play. And there's a lot, that's a fascinating idea. Ken is saying here that is not pure non-dualism. But there are other forms of non-dualism which I think are closer to what the Course says, like Shankaracharya, who was like this 8th century, one of the most important sages in all of Hindu Hindu philosophy, all of Hindu history, had a very profound influence. So Shankaracharya said, God alone is real, the world is unreal, period. I think he actually was more of a pure non-dualist. And then there were schools of thought. This is, I've talked about this before. The Course in Miracles community, in some ways, mirrors what happened in Hinduism, which was you had Shankaracharya who came along and said, what we're talking about here is non-dualism, right? The world is unreal. There is no world. That's what Jesus says, right, in the Course. There is no world. The world is unreal. Only God is real. But people came after him, and there were two mainstreams that came after him. One was qualified non-dualism, that there's still some separation between us and God. And then there's dualism, which is that we are eternally separate from God. And that's a good thing, because we can worship God for eternity. We can be a child of God for eternity, or a devotee, so to speak. And there are people that take to these different schools of thought. So it's not much different, actually, than the world of A Course in Miracles, right? There are these factions, but there's those factions also in Hinduism and probably other traditions as well. Now, but the question is, and like the non-dualists will say, well, there's a level at which dualism is true, or qualified non-dualism is true, but at the highest level, it's non-dual, right? So you may see that, you may feel very, very sure that ultimate reality is dualistic on some level, but it's only because you have not gotten all the way there yet. And when you do, you will realize the non-duality. And then the dualists say, no, non-dualism is a lower rung. Non-dualism is just, okay, you know yourself, but the real juice is in worshiping God for eternity. That's like the Hare Krishna philosophy, is that they worship Krishna or Vishnu for eternity in Krishna's world, in Krishna's realm, and that to them is the highest. So my point, my basic point is that there is pure non-dualism in Hinduism. By the way, non-dualism is Advaita. Advaita means non-dualism, not two. Advaita. Dva is where we get the word two. Not two. Advaita. Advaita Vedanta. That's what Shankara was coming to teach, was Advaita Vedanta. He took the teachings of mainly the Upanishads, which is what are called Vedanta. He took the Vedantic teachings, and he basically distilled it to that basic message of non-dualism, that God is without a second, right? God has no second, no other. There's nothing other than God in reality. What else can we say about this? think we can leave it at that for right now, but I wanted to just share something kind of off topic. Definitely off topic, but everything is connected, so let's see if we can connect it somehow. So we just did an Aya ceremony for 2 people, ayahuasca. It was a couple who came, and at the very end, they told me that after they drank their cup, they were laying together, and they both started crying. And the guy said that his wife, who had died, came to him and gave him I forget what he said exactly. She had given him a crystal heart or something, and that he was to give the crystal heart now to his new partner. At the very same time, the woman, his partner, felt his wife, who had died, behind her and giving her a blessing or giving her a hug or something like that. So they both, independently of each other, they both felt this guy's wife. They were very sure that it was her. This is fascinating. This is really fascinating. So they were both crying, and in a way, what was happening was his wife, who had died, was giving her blessing now on his new relationship. And they had come to do the ayahuasca ceremony, to work on their relationship. And they had been somewhat at odds with each other, and there was a lot of guilt involved and a lot of back and forth between the two of them. And I really feel that what happened there was a resolution for both of them. They were already on that road to resolution, but this was more confirmation that their relationship was blessed somehow. And let's just talk about ayahuasca for a moment. I think ayahuasca, a pure course student might say, no, you don't need ayahuasca. Right? All you need is the truth. What ayahuasca can do, though, is it can bring you into that holy instant. Or it can bring you, it definitely can bring you into that holy instant. But it also can reveal other things that are very profound, that can be very helpful on the road to the goal of A Course in Miracles. What else do I want to say? I think what happens, it's like when 2 or more are gathered in my name, right? And what happens in ceremony is you feel the oneness. Inevitably. Hey. Oh. Uh-oh. Hey, buddy. Maybe that's enough for today. Thank you for listening. See you soon.